Hello, and welcome to Wine, Whiskey, and Words. I'm Daniel.
I'm Brad.
If you've listened to our podcast before, we'd love to welcome you back. We're really grateful for all our returning listeners. If you're new, each episode we try a drink. We talk about something interesting in our life, just something we saw. It may be something simple, maybe something complex, maybe it could be anything.
Could be life changing.
Could be life changing. Could be world changing, actually. But anyway, and then we're going to talk about a topic. The topic's usually brought in the week before, so we'll get to that. But we just have a great conversation, and we do our best to prep and research appropriately so that we're not just throwing out crazy ideas. Now, we throw out some crazy ideas, but we're not just doing it aimlessly. And we aim to just have a fun and interesting time, and we are glad you're joining us. With that said, let's begin. I have a note here that says drink. So, Brad, I'm going to turn this over to you.
All right. So, my brother's brother-in-law, Jeff, introduced me.
14th cousin, third removed.
Sixth.
I'm really
Sixth.
bad. I'm really bad with
the whole.
So
thing. Basically, my sister-in-law Jennifer,
okay,
her brother Jeff, introduced me a few Thanksgivings ago to this distillery out of Portland. He discovered it when he was going through an airport, and they had a place set up over there. And so he joined the club. He introduced it to me. I joined the club. So I brought 2 club-only bottles with me.
So I get to join the club?
Yeah. Well,
sort of.
You're a hanger-on. So it's called Westward, and I wish I had gotten a little bit more information about them. I apologize for not. I'll include that in the show notes about them. But this is just some fantastic drinks. So the first one that we're going to have, as you get older like me, I did get my eyes checked recently. I've been told I need to get progressives. But for now, I'm taking off my glasses to see close. I'm going to pour this, and then I'll tell you a little bit about this particular one. This one is the double-seasoned distinct cask.
Double-seasoned? What does that mean?
I'm going to tell you that in a second.
It's very light.
Yeah.
It's very
now,
pretty.
But each of their club releases, those are only available to club members. You can get other things available from them. But I'll tell you a little bit about this one in particular. So this one is, first of all, there were only 243 bottles produced of this.
Ooh.
So consider yourself lucky. The tasting notes on it, the aroma is golden delicious apples, marzipan cookies, pear, and citrus. On the palate, you should be getting banana cake, orange peel, yellow peaches, and dried mango. And on the finish, you should be getting some shortbread, mild oak vanilla, citrus peel, and hints of pistachio. It's 90 proof, 45% ABV. Now, it was aged exclusively in a barrel previously used to age fine bourbon and then brandy. And so they utilized the double-seasoned barrel for primary maturation of the whiskey. Distinct characteristics of bourbon and apple brandy are brought to the forefront, unlocking the grain and fruit notes in it.
So I'm definitely, honestly, I'm getting the banana bread a little up front.
I'm getting a lot of the banana bread on the nose and the marzipan cookies, although I think that kind of goes hand in hand a little bit.
I don't know that I know what a marzipan cookie is, so I'm going to take your word for that, but I definitely taste the mango. Wow, that mango really hits you, and it's in a good way. But it's
I really enjoy this.
Yeah, this is very nice. I was a little surprised at the lightness of it. It's a very clear light color for a whiskey, but I not too shabby.
While you're enjoying that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the other one.
Okay.
So the other one is the Westward whiskey Vintner's Cuvée. So that's a mingle of whiskeys aged in fruit-forward Syrah, Cabernet Sauvignon, Tempranillo, and Pinot Noir barrels from Oregon and around the world. So the tasting notes on that, on the aroma, you get strawberry, dried raisins, figs, red orchid fruits, red laced licorice, and citrus peel. On the palate, you get black currant, strawberry shortcake, clove, forest floor, and flan. And on the finish,
Okay.
you get mint panna cotta, graham cracker, cherry jam, orange marmalade, and lingering pine and birch.
This is
So-
reminding me of the scene in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory
Mhm.
with the girl who tastes the full meal
Right.
gum.
Right. So just
Yeah,
be
that's a
careful.
very complex. Complex.
You're going to turn into a forest.
Just the floor.
Right. All right. So let me grab that bottle. And that's why I wanted to do this one first, because you can really see the color difference between the two as well.
Yeah, like that is more what I expect of a whiskey. Now I'm very intrigued by what you described as the process with the different wine barrels.
Yeah.
Because that's something you don't hear very often. So I'm really excited to try this.
And I'm knowing you, I'm expecting you probably afterwards to go out and lick some grass.
Well, out in the woods at least.
Mhm.
The forest floor.
What has to be in the forest floor.
Just get a good comparison.
All right.
So you said you got this in Portland, or this is where the distillery is at least?
That's where the distillery is.
Okay.
They ship me
Okay.
about once every few months.
And I guess they ship anywhere it's legal to ship alcohol.
Yes, and there was actually this really interesting one that was aged in a stout cask.
Okay.
And there was another one where this one I think that everyone can get, I believe, but tastes kind of like notes of chocolate.
Oh,
which
okay.
is really interesting.
I do like a good stout, so.
A little bit light at first. I do get the kind of like the cherry.
I was gonna say I think my nose is broken because
It's
very light on the nose. It's not.
Yeah.
You don't get an intense flavor to it.
I did. Yeah, it's not cherry. It's the laced licorice, the red lace.
Yeah, it
And the
definitely
strawberry.
get a little Twizzler action going on there. We are in no way sponsored by Twizzler, but if Twizzler wants to sponsor us, come on, girl.
I am a fan of black licorice.
You Philistine.
I'll take all the black licorice. Well, not all of it, because I have heard if you do too much, that can cause heart problems.
Really?
Yeah.
No,
Yep.
I am not going to have that particular problem when it comes to heart problems.
This is interesting. I get more of the flavors on the finish.
Yeah, like I said, the lingering flavor is
Yeah.
stronger than the flavor up front. But it has very little burn, just like the last one. Neither of these has much burn at all. Sometimes
Mhm.
you get a bourbon that or whiskey that really burns you. And this one, neither one does.
Which one do you like more?
I did not expect this. When I saw the color of the first one, I wasn't sure. But I actually think I like the first one a little more.
Well, I think the first one is a bit more flavorful. It really comes out. But I think this one is a little bit more subtle.
I think the forest floor really overwhelms a lot of the
Yeah.
other flavors.
I'm not going to go there.
Well, all right. Well, I think we've had some drinks. I do want to. Well, let me finish this one first.
Yo, you want more of the other one?
Yeah, top me off. I'm
All
gonna
right.
talk about something interesting. So I'm gonna
You're-
need some
you're
whiskey.
talking about me?
Well, Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
So when we started this podcast, we debated whether we should have limits on what we should say. I know I'm getting the looks, but I'm actually had I done this podcast last week, it would have been a little less kind and a little more angry.
I had to talk you off the ledge.
But I do want to say, I think the most interesting thing since our last episode, just in our lives, is on July 1st, the Supreme Court handed down a ruling, as many of you will know, And they said in their, this is just the brief, this is not the full ruling, this is just the brief at the beginning, the sort of the syllabus that says, or not syllabus, there's a word for it, but it's escaping me. Under our constitutional structure of separated powers, the nature of presidential power entitles a former president to absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for actions within his conclusive and preclusive constitutional authority. He is entitled to at least presumptive immunity for all his official acts. There is no immunity for unofficial acts. And I have to admit, when I first read this, because I've spent a lot of my life being very passionate about reading Supreme Court rulings and following the Supreme Court. I've been a Supreme Court junkie most of my adult life. I felt a lot of anger, a lot of fear, because it came prior to Independence Day, which celebrates our Declaration of Independence from a king, a tyrant, and some of the complaints seem to reek of this decision. But as I pondered this and really processed it, my anger and fear led way to frustration and finally to curiosity. And I'm just going to say, I think this is a very interesting decision. I think it will shape probably the rest of our existence as a nation. But I want to ask a question, because this is the question that is on my mind now. And I'm not going to answer it. I'm just going to let you ponder it. If you could carry out any official act with complete immunity from any sort of consequence, other than obviously the political consequences and perhaps social consequences, but any legal consequence, what would you do with that power? Because it's a very powerful thing. For instance, if we take things that our current president is accused of doing incorrectly or whatever, would you forgive student loan debt en masse? Would you grant mass citizenship to people? Would you seize corporate assets if you thought something was being done incorrectly? Would you prompt investigations and publicly divulge the results of those investigations so that it hurt other people? All of these things could be considered official acts, and I think it's just a fascinating question. Again, I'm saying this with no anger. I don't care who you support or whatever. I just think it's worth pondering, and that's my interesting thing for the week.
Wow.
Sorry, I that was my soapbox. I'm done with politics for the week.
For the week.
Next up, religion.
Oh, great. Well, for me, I'm looking forward to heading to, not in last week, but in a few days, heading down to Key West to celebrate the belated 21st birthday of my cousin's youngest daughter, Natalie. So a bunch of us are going to be going down to Key West and having some fun.
I think it's amazing how we compliment one another. Like, I feel like when I'm too serious, you're like, "Hey, I'm gonna go have fun. I'm going to Key West."
That's like, I see that as my job. Is you come up with the serious shit, and I'm just here to just enjoy life.
Probably. I just want to say, if you're going to Key West, I will be very offended if you don't bring me back some sort of souvenir with a penis on it, because that's kind of the thing there.
I will bring you back a penis.
All right. Well, we're in it. So, Last episode, I had a very open-ended, vague topic to discuss, and I said, fallen from grace. I thought it would be interesting to discuss things that people, places, things, whatever, that have fallen from grace over time. I think it's just an interesting topic, and I had never really thought about it much. So as I started to read and ponder, I found that it was probably a little too open-ended, and we've had some conversations offline about it. But I just wanted to give some background that I learned in all of this. I looked up fall from grace. Where does this come from? Because I never really thought about it much. And like many things, many idioms that we have, it came from the Bible, specifically the King James Bible, in Galatians 5:4, which is written by the Apostle Paul. He said, "Christ is become of no effect unto you, whosoever of you are justified by the law, ye are fallen from grace. And it sounds kind of odd that this would be going on in the Bible. What's even more odd is much of the book of Galatians seems to have to do with Paul had a real issue with circumcision. He was really mad about circumcision and why many people who were obviously former Jews, because that was kind of the thing back then, were still getting circumcised. And his whole thing about the law was the previous law of getting circumcised. So, fallen from grace has an odd meaning to me, and I thought it was very comical. So I just wanted to share that. And he goes into a lot of other things in his little letter to the church of the Galatians, which there's a lot of debate about who that was. But he talks about what's good, what's bad, and all that stuff. But I'm going to move on. And I just think it's really funny that, like, given the whole Adam and Eve thing about, like, oh, well, you left, you fell from grace. Like, telling somebody they fell from grace is a pretty big insult. So,
I'm gonna use that more often.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell all of my coworkers that they've fallen from grace.
Yeah, do it, man.
I'm gonna tell my guests over there. I'm gonna just tell them that they've fallen from grace.
Yeah, do it.
Daniel, you've fallen from grace.
Hey, you know what? If I read this list of works
Holy
of the flesh by Paul, I decided not to go into it. Again, I think I went a little too serious on the other. So I'm gonna let you go with your Brad. What do you want to talk about? Falling from grace.
Well, if this was 15, 20 years ago, I would have said something different. But I'm not going to go there.
Okay.
I'm not going to go there.
We'll save the stories for another episode.
You know what? I did have a guest over where I work when I was discussing it. Oh, and by the way, I do have to preface, for those who I had mentioned that I was going to be popping a certain bottle for Daniel, it will come at a future time. I was unable to locate said bottle, so it will come in the future.
He's
I forgot to mention
saving
that.
the Manischewitz Grand Cuvée for me.
You son of a bitch. No, seriously, it was Manischewitz. I was gonna pop a freaking bottle of Manischewitz.
Hey, I actually thought of bringing it one of my weeks. So,
son of a!
It's all good.
Bitch. All right. Anyways, I've got a whole list. All right, I'm gonna ask you first. Do you want me to list a person or an item?
You know what? Let's start with a person. I'm curious if your person is one of the ones I have chosen.
Oh, Lordy. I've got such the list. You know what? I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to go on the top of my list right here, but I'm going to go with someone that we viewed favorably and who is someone that I loved viewing. Kevin Spacey.
I'm sorry. I will admit I am so far out of pop culture that I didn't realize Kevin Spacey had fallen from grace. So hit me.
Kevin Spacey was accused of being inappropriate with a young man, and then it was afterwards that he was kind of outed.
Okay.
Which I mean I never. There are some actors and musicians where you think maybe it never occurred to me about him, but for someone who I love so many of the things that he was in, especially Usual Suspects.
Yep.
And then I think he was also House of Cards.
Oh, so I will say that was a twisted but very fascinating show that I just had to stop watching because it started hitting a little too close to home. But no, he was definitely in there, and it was very good.
That I understand it's vile when people act out the way that they do, but it's at those times where if you love, it's difficult for me to say this, but sometimes I feel you have to separate the person from the product, and where you can still appreciate what they've done in the performance, but you don't want to go ahead and support them as a person.
It's very complex, and I definitely understand what you're saying. I have a very good friend who swore off films by a certain actor who she said, "Oh, he does this and he does that," and I understand. Like anytime I watch one of those films, it's supporting this actor, but at the same time, if I go and let's say I know something horrible about you know Leonardo da Vinci, and I go to a museum and see one of his works of art, I don't think, oh, this is a horrible work of art because he may have done something bad. So I agree. You kind of have to draw this line and say, like, I can look objectively at this art, but still say what this person who created this art or participated in it did bad.
Well, that's interesting that you said that too, because I do remember some years back when Sean Connery passed away, that, I posted up on Facebook, RIP, and I lost a Facebook friend. I hadn't seen this person in a few years, but because she decried what he said, and I looked it up and I saw the things that he said were not the greatest at all. But it's still, watching those films brings me back to a place where when I was younger and that I enjoyed those times.
Yeah, I have to say, like, I remember very fondly. Now, again, Kevin Spacey for some reason is really escaping me. Like, I know that he's been in a lot of things that I enjoyed, but he just wasn't one of my favorites. But Sean Connery was, and when you look at his, to me, most famous character, James Bond, which other people have played him, he was a womanizer. He was kind of a dick in modern standards.
Well, also, he was in Highlander.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
yeah,
he played the same. He was a swashbuckler, kind of that same kind of character.
but when you think about it, he really he had a lot of character. He was a great actor, and again, I don't think his off-screen behavior should necessarily take away from his art. Now, again, I understand the whole, well, every time you watch one of his films, you're supporting his royalties when he's alive. But once he's dead, you can at least say, well, you know what? He was pretty cool. Like, pretty cool in terms of an acting skill.
Right.
So,
all
anyway.
right, what's yours?
Well, so I'm going to give you the same choice, but although it's limited, because I just realized that mine fell into two categories: people or places.
I'm going to go with places.
Places. Okay, so I was going to give a big one that was really complex, but I think the other one that I came up with was more fun. Blockbuster Video.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I found out today that if you go to blockbuster.com,
yeah,
they still have an active website. Now it's just a placeholder that's like, oh, well, we were trying to do this and come here. It's not the most interactive. It's just active.
Right.
But I was like, when I was a kid, I remember my parents taking me to Blockbuster. We didn't go to the movies a lot, but we went to Blockbuster a lot. And we had our membership card, a little laminated thing. And it was actually a really cool place. And I did some research. And I didn't realize Blockbuster has been around had been around. I guess it has, because it's still active. Since 1985.
Yeah.
It peaked in 2004, which sounds about right. They had 84,000 employees and 9,094 stores. They at one time or another had Betamax, VHS, Laserdisc, DVD, and Blu-ray.
I do know something about Blockbuster.
Okay.
Did you know that they were offered and turned down the option to purchase Netflix?
No.
Yep. They turned it down.
Which is really funny, because that was probably the greatest influence on their failure.
Right. No, it was.
It
absolutely was.
I mean, Redbox, I remember Redbox coming out when Blockbuster was still a pretty going going thing. And Redbox took away from it because it was either $4.99 at Blockbuster or $1 at Redbox. And I'm sure Redbox was losing money left and right, but they killed between them and Netflix. They killed Blockbuster.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the coolest things that I found was Blockbuster actually in their dying days decided they were going to create something called Block Party. Now they only had 2 of them, but it was an adult indoor theme park with like virtual reality theaters. They had a adult-sized playground, like when you remember the McDonald's playground.
Yeah,
adult-sized playground.
I had not heard of that.
Yes, look up Blockbuster Block Party because it looked amazing. They only created 2 of them, and I'm sure they are gone because the last Blockbuster is still open in Bend, Oregon. But again, I think of that as probably the biggest in my lifetime place that has fallen from grace. So that's what I got.
All right. I will ask you again. People or items?
You hit me with people pretty hard, so I'm going to go with items this time.
All right. I won't go with the suggestion I was given by a guest over where I work.
Was it a penis souvenir?
No, they said Boeing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really funny because like we're sending people to space now on Boeing, and
yeah.
But anyway, we'll move on.
Anyways, ooh, I'm not gonna go with this one yet. I'm gonna go with paper road maps.
So I don't know, man. Like I still in my car carry a U.S. road map.
Why?
Like, because you don't have a guarantee.
You have a phone, right?
But like you don't have a guarantee that you're going to have cell service.
Yeah, but you know what? All right, hold on a second. Because I traveled around the U.S. in 2021.
You did.
There was only a brief period of time, so I'm driving around and I was going from Phoenix, Arizona to Las Vegas. And
yeah, that's a rough drive.
So I'm driving and I'm probably like maybe 2 hours out of Vegas and I don't have a signal.
Yep.
But because I have the map on it,
you're on that long desert road.
It's still tracking me. But then I had to pull over for a second and then I got back in my car and there wasn't a signal. Now, however, I still knew that I had like at least 20 miles to go. And I was able to pick up a signal when I was like 10 miles outside of the city. So it was very few and far between.
So I do acknowledge the difficulty, like the challenge of like, well, I have all this technology and it's usually pretty reliable, but I mean, you see it. You're using an iPad, and I'm sitting here with my papers. Looking,
yes.
I work in technology, and I understand that like sometimes your stuff goes down. I hope it doesn't. If you work in technology, well, please, I hope it doesn't.
Here's the great thing: if I lose a signal, it's still on here.
I don't trust it, man. I don't trust it. I will, to my dying day, carry a map of the place I'm most likely to be. Just in case.
This is like if I didn't drink wine.
Hey, that's we're not going into religion just yet.
No,
that's blasphemous. That's religion. Blasphemous.
No,
that's blasphemous.
That's the industry I work in, and I drink it. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid.
I don't know, man. Like I gotta have my paper map just in case.
You're insane. But it's not you. I mean, how often do you see it?
I rarely see it. I will admit, I rarely will look at a paper map. And I'm grateful for that. But batteries die. Things happen.
You don't have a charger in your car?
I'm just saying. Things happen, batteries die. And I like the comfort of knowing that if I had to go on foot, I've got a paper backup.
Okay, so we're going to need at some point in time to talk about the life insurance that you have to make sure that your needs are adequate because, as you're saying, You believe in covering all of the bases.
You know what? I'm probably your target demographic
If
for sure.
if a meteor hits you on the head, Daniel, Jamie is going to be. Well, she may not be devastated, but she'll be upset for a little bit.
Moderately
Right.
inconvenienced.
She's like, I gotta
Oh my
plan
God.
a funeral.
Can I outsource this?
Right.
So I think I want to go. Do we have time for a few more?
We've got all the time in the freaking
Okay.
world.
Okay. So I want to go to a person because to me this is a person who I actually think influenced my growth as a child, and his fall from grace was, I think, sadly spectacular. And that is Bill Cosby. Yeah,
Yeah.
the
He was number 2 on my list.
yeah. I remember growing up with my dad sitting around watching the Cosby Show, and Cliff Huxtable always had a word of wise advice, not just like advice, but like wise for the ages advice. And some people have called him America's dad.
I mean, who didn't call him America's dad?
Right, like
Everyone did.
He really, he was just this iconic figure that everybody elevated. And even as the years went by, and his stand up comedy got a little critical of black culture in particular, he got a lot of flack for his comments, but he stood firm and said, "You know what? No, you should be a good father. If you have a child, you are entitled. You are obligated to be a good father. You put yourselves aside and all these things." And sadly, uh, in recent years, probably not so recent now, but it seems recent. It came out that since 1965, the guy had been just mistreating women in horrible ways, women and children. He was accused by over 60 women of rape, drug facilitated sexual assault, child sex abuse, harassment, the whole gamut. And, was all this proven in court? Arguably, yes, but, or at least in some cases. He was ultimately vacated. His conviction was vacated, but, it seems like there was probably some truth to at least some of it. And as much as this guy, in his role as Cliff Huxtable, helped raise me, I guess I would say.
He was everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, he had the Puddin' Pops. Who didn't love the Puddin' Pops?
I'm gonna have me a pudding pop.
I mean, Fat Albert
Yeah.
and the Cosby Kids. Like, I mean, he really. I mean, the guy won the Presidential Medal of Freedom. He was a big thing.
Did he have to get that back?
Yeah, like so many things that he earned. This life that I won't argue that he didn't do good things and didn't teach good things.
But everything that he's done was tarnished by those horrible deeds that he did.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so sad when you see this goodness be in some ways erased, because now if I say something about Bill Cosby, a lot of people will immediately start with the bad and not maybe they've never seen the Cosby Show.
Right.
But again, going back to what we said about art, if you watch the Cosby Show as a work of art, it is a beautiful thing. It's just sad in the larger context that we see outside of it. So anyway, sorry, got a little dark.
That's
there.
okay.
But yeah, go for it.
All right. My next one. Encyclopedias.
Oh.
Which growing up, when I had to do like, whatever projects for class or whatever, I'm not gonna say I didn't plagiarize. half the time I did when I was in elementary school. Copy that crap. But they were a great resource. Now that's gone by the wayside, and what we have replaced for it is social media. We have Wikipedia, which I don't know if you knew this or not. Anyone can edit Wikipedia.
There are a little stronger guardrails.
I edited a
that,
Wikipedia page.
But I bet if you look, somebody else has gone back and modified your edit.
Nope.
Oh, really?
I look every once in a while. All right.
Okay.
Well, honestly, it's also because it has to do with.
He was talking about me.
Yeah, it has to do with a business that my grandfather helped start.
Okay.
And run, and then he passed away, but he was never mentioned in the Wikipedia page, and so I edited that, and it's still there. I can pull this shit up right now. Sorry for the language, my friends. Let's look this up right now.
So while you look that up, I will say that there were times, because I am a very political and thoughtful person, there were times that my anger overtook my wisdom, and I tried to update a Wikipedia page, and often it accepted my update. So in any given moment, you might look at Wikipedia and get some false information. But within 12 to 24 hours, my update was removed.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't clear.
You see that name right there?
I do. Howard Pruse.
Yep, it's still there right now.
So again, I do think there's a little more of a guide rail, but I do understand your point that Wikipedia, perhaps not the most reliable, but it has displaced the encyclopedia. Mm-hmm. And I will say, like you, as a child, it was kind of funny. I don't know where these things came from, but somehow in my life, I would have like the eyes of an encyclopedia set. Like I wouldn't have the whole thing. I do think we had a full set, but like I would have like one book from another set, and I'd be like, oh, I'll learn the eyes.
Did your cousin have the other part?
No idea.
Okay.
But probably stole it from a library, knowing me. But I really love the encyclopedia because it was that gateway to information. You weren't going to become an expert, but you were going to become knowledgeable at a layman's level. Well, probably above a layman's level on whatever topic you were looking at. And I agree that has fallen from grace. It has fallen from the public eye. And it's hard because if you read a 1980s encyclopedia, it's going to be missing some information. But it was a beautiful thing in its day. So you even had guys going around selling them. Like apparently there were door-to-door salesmen for encyclopedias.
There were door-to-door salesmen for a lot of different things way back then. But all right, we'll do one more round here.
Okay.
Pick something.
I got one more, and this to me actually is kind of what prompted me. Well, no, it didn't prompt me. When I thought of Fallen from Grace, well, actually, if most of you think of Fallen from Grace, the first thing that probably comes to mind, if you don't think about something modern,
Will and Grace.
Well, I mean, has she had children? I mean, never mind. No. Anyway, we're gonna move on. So I was like, you know what, Lucifer.
That's my middle name. It's not my first name.
So, my first reaction to researching this topic was to look up Lucifer. And the amazing thing is, like, the whole origin of the Lucifer thing is really not what we think it is. All Lucifer means is morning star. Mm-hmm. It actually references the planet Venus. It comes from the Hebrew, and I am sorry if you know Hebrew. Brad, you probably don't.
I know how to pronounce it.
I apologize in advance. Halil, the shining one.
Okay.
Did I get it anywhere close?
Well, if I'm looking at the letters, I can know how to pronounce it.
So. All right, here you go. I'm going to let you look. That's how it was written on the website I found.
That's in English, not in Hebrew.
Yeah, I can't help you with that.
It might be halal.
Okay.
Might be. I'm not sure.
Well, either way.
Anyways.
It means the morning star. And what's interesting is I always assumed that like the origin of the whole like, well, Lucifer fell from heaven and he was sent to hell and all this stuff came from the Bible, but it's actually not. They actually think it came from mythological origins related to the Canaanites. Um, it's modern English versions of the Bible. Now, the King James does reference Lucifer, but most modern English versions don't believe that that's an accurate representation. They refer to the king of Babylon, which they think is kind of a generic reference to kings who are away from God and
Well,
things
a
like that.
lot of the holidays that we have are based on prior religions.
Yeah, it's not like Christian holidays or,
Right.
or Judeo-Christian holidays. So, but yeah, like, and honestly, even in later years, as you have Dante's Inferno, where he mentions Lucifer. Like Lucifer
Right.
was a thing, but it's not biblical. It's loosely biblical, maybe, sort of. But even Lucifer and Satan were even considered separate at one point. Like a lot of people, like if you go, I've been to some churches in my days, and they kind of use Lucifer and Satan and the morning star and all this stuff as interchangeable. But that wasn't the case. Like Satan and Lucifer were related, but they weren't one and the same. And I just thought it was really interesting, and I can't can't avoid this topic without plugging one of my favorite shows. If you haven't watched the show Lucifer, about a Lucifer that has come from hell to Earth and lives on Earth, I highly recommend it.
It's a great show.
In fact, oddly enough, he kind of, I guess you could say, rises from grace of hell because they're not really thrilled that he came to Earth at certain points. So,
Well, they're not thrilled that he stayed there.
yes. So, check out Lucifer. Great show. That's
Now,
all I got.
interestingly, it made me think of one of my favorite movies, The Prophecy.
I have not seen that.
God. It stars Christopher Walken as Gabriel,
Okay.
and part of the thing is that there's another section of the Bible that people didn't know about, that there was a war among the angels because some of the angels felt that God favored mankind, and they called us, the monkeys,
Oh wow.
because they viewed us as lesser than them. So Christopher Walken's character Gabriel was on the side against God, and there was one certain part that I always remember, uh, that one of the one of the main characters in there, who looks like he looks like Christopher Maloney from Law and Order,
Okay.
but um, it's not, and I always thought it was, but it's someone that's constantly thought confused with him. But he's standing there with um, with Gabriel, and Gabriel is talking about the problem issues he has with God, and he says, "Well, if you have this problem with God, why don't you talk to him about it?" And the answer was, because he doesn't talk to me anymore. And that kind of goes back to the worst thing that can happen to an angel is that they're not talking to his father. The father won't talk to him anymore.
Well, that really, I would say that if my father stopped speaking to me for some reason, um, I would be devastated. So I can relate, and I'm gonna stop this train of thought because I'm gonna cry, um, and I don't want to do that on the podcast. Maybe later. All right, Brad, you got another one. Let's move on. You got something else?
All right, yeah, I definitely have one more that I can do. Um, God, there's so many good ones I can do. I'm not going to do the super obvious. But let's go Michael Richards.
That guy.
Yes.
You will probably tell me who that guy is. I'll be like, oh yeah, that guy.
Kramer from Seinfeld.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Wow, we're not allowed to say that word, but yeah, he kind of full foot down throat out ass.
So
really.
there's some actors who might have started out comedians, and there's other ones that became comedians later. One of them was I can't remember his name right now. Screech.
Yeah.
Yeah. Became a stand-up comic. Michael Richards became a stand-up comic. I don't know if he did that before Seinfeld, but the problem is I think in that whatever you do, you always kind of have to know your audience, know what's going on, and know that what you do or what you say are going to have consequences. He fucked up.
I will say and for those who don't know, Kramer on Seinfeld was just delightful. He was a lot of fun. He was energetic, in a just very creative way. But he had a stand up routine where he just shouted the N word repeatedly for some reason. I never heard the whole thing.
Yeah, someone kind of interrupted him and wouldn't stop, and that's when that happened.
And it was, I would say, the end of his. I don't know that he's done anything else. It was the end of his career, and you know, it's one of those things I've had to teach my daughter, that every action, every word you say has consequences, whether they're small or large. They have consequences, and sometimes you don't see those coming. And yeah, that was a big fall from grace. Yeah. So I'll probably be in trouble for saying some things I said on this today.
Oh, no doubt. I'll beat you later.
So, is there anything else, Brad, you want to add about this topic?
Fallen from grace? God, only that I've fallen from grace many, many times, as my mother might say.
Yeah, that's fair. I want to ask, I want to just pose a question, and I'll let everybody think about this offline. The fast food burger chain, if you think about where the big ones are now, they're still big. Mm-hmm. But when you think about their competition, the market forces, maybe they've fallen from grace or have begun to.
I've seen a lot of posts recently stating what the price of their burger was 20 years ago and what the size of it was versus the size of it now versus how much you're paying. I mean, I haven't enjoyed fast food for probably 20 to 25 years at least, because long before I became a somewhat vegan vegetarian, I stopped eating.
Just so you know, Brad's phrase is, "I'm not that vegan."
No, it's not. It's not just that. It's that I say I'm a vegan. I'm an a-hole, but I'm not a vegan a-hole.
Okay,
that's
fair,
what what it is.
Fair.
Because I don't care what you eat. I do this for myself.
That's fair.
But long before that, I think the last time I probably had a burger from a fast food chain is probably like, 2007, 2008, maybe.
And it probably was completely uninspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, Brad, I think it's on you. What is next episode's topic?
Well, you're the serious one in this bunch. So, I'm a very big fan of, lists.
Okay.
Last time it was songs. This time it's movies.
Movies.
So, it is your top 5 movies that you've seen 5 times or more.
Ooh.
And you got to talk about it a little bit. Now, here's the thing. This is going to be a tit for tat. So you need to have extras.
Oh, I'm sure I will have extras.
Because if I mention one, you can't use it. And if you
Okay.
mention one, I can't use it.
All right. Well, I think we're gonna have some fun with this one for sure.
So that's what I'm about, the fun.
Well, any final thoughts, questions, words of wisdom, or just cuss words that you want to
I don't
offer
know.
to the?
The more I drink, the less thoughts that I have. I did have a thought a few minutes ago, and then I don't know. I think it went somewhere. Maybe it went into the
Yeah, it happens.
into here.
So, well, this has been another episode, and I had fun with this. I thought it was very interesting that some of us, or that we came up with at least one that overlapped. And I hope you guys found this interesting. I hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to the next episode.
Anything you're looking forward to doing in the next week?
The next week, so my daughter comes home Sunday. She's off with her mother right now. I'm excited about that. But really, that's probably the highlight. I am hoping to enforce my boundaries and work, and then stop working in the evening and not just continue to work into the evening. So I'm trying to manage my own personal boundaries right now, and I'm not always the best at doing it.
You have to be able to do that. You have to be able to set, because if you don't set those boundaries, you're affecting your personal life.
Yeah, and it's an ongoing process. Sometimes I'm good at it, sometimes I'm bad, but yeah, right now I've not been so great lately, and I'm trying to be better.
I'm always great.
And you're always trying to be better.
Is it really possible though?
It's a high bar, Brad. It's
Yeah.
a high bar.
All right.
Well, thank you guys, and we'll see you next episode.
Peace out.